Recording is in process. Progress? Process. It's both.
What's the difference between process and progress? Well, progress is when you're actually like making way, when you're getting somewhere. Process is the act of, oh wow, I really need to look this up real quick. Hello everybody, welcome to I Needed This Today, but what you needed is this definition real quick.
Because when you hit record, we're on Zoom because we live in different spaces until next week, it says recording in progress or process. I can't remember.
I think it would be progress.
Okay.
Okay, so process, a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end. Okay, to perform, that's the noun. A verb is to perform a series of mechanical or chemical operations on something in order to change or preserve it. Okay, and progress, look, we all needed this today, all right? Me especially. I feel like I use these words so much, and I love definitions. I'm a real geek for that shit. So, okay, progress, forward or onward movement towards a destination. So they're not hugely dissimilar. Development towards an improved or more advanced condition. As a verb, it's move forward or onward in space or time, develop towards an improved or more advanced condition. Okay, love that. So progress is like when you're making headway towards a destination. Process is the action steps to bring about any kind of change. Got it.
Boom. That's our value for the day. The rest of it's just going to be shit talking.
Welcome to episode 13, shit podcast. Shit posting, but shit pod.
Now, today we actually have a whole bunch of topics that we're ready to talk about, things that are going on in the current world, but also how we can tie that into the I Needed This Today themes and what's going on in our lives and what we've been talking about with you, the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we most have to start off with, it was ALPHAMAMA's birthday when you hear this 2 days ago. So happy birthday, ALPHAMAMA. Woo, woo, woo.
Happy birthday to me. Well, technically I was thinking about this last night because I was born at around 11 p.m. So technically, actually, it was only my birthday at 11 p.m. And if I get a 24-hour birthday, then it's still my birthday.
Still my birthday.
So,
oh,
yeah.
Shit. Happy birthday. Well, I came and celebrated with you the day before.
So I've had a long ass birthday, and it's the birthday that keeps on going.
Yes. Where do we want to start off on these bunch of topics? I feel, I wrote them down. I'm going to make you pick first.
Well, I mean, it is my birthday still, and we did have an early celebration, which was quite the adventure. I think we should start there. Just talk about the adventure that we had on my birthday.
It was a big day. So
I'm still recovering. I'm sore as fuck. Are you sore?
No, I feel really good. But I had a big rest day yesterday.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
The day started off where Tim and I came over to yours. This is also going to tie in with another topic, which is good. So we came over to yours, and for some people that are listening, they're taking the lockdowns very serious, and so are we. But I'm including ALPHAMAMA as a part of my polyamorous relationship. We're not in a relationship sexually, romantically, but ALPHAMAMA is a soulmate, is a best friend.
It's a partner you don't have sex with.
A partner I don't have sex with, and you're about to move in anyways. So Tim and I came to your house to celebrate your birthday, and how it started was Tim and I knocking at your door and me pressing play on a song that I've created and lighting a candle on a chimkin nugget cake that we made for you.
It was the best. It was the best.
And it had a happy birthday thing on it and a candle and a push play, and it was The Beat to Satisfaction by Benny Benassi, and it was push me.
Can you just play it? Do you have it on your phone?
So I could get my... Wait, no. Shit, I can't even remember how it goes. But let me quickly pull it up. You pull up how you share about what was the surprise of that moment for you.
So I opened the door to the two of them wearing happy birthday hats and this stack of chicken nuggets from KFC. And I don't know if it's just very incriminating, but I love chicken nuggets from KFC. McDonald's chicken nuggets can suck my dick, but chicken nuggets from KFC, they're wonderful. Okay. And I know they're disgusting and yeah, they're bad for you and they're so gross and whatever, but they're fucking phenomenal. So there was a birthday cake with this song.
And then just touch me so I can get my chimkanagas. Chimkanagas. Chimkanagas.
I feel like no one else is going to find this funny because this is an inside joke. So basically, when we were together, Paisley and I were together and we lived together, we would always be in the kitchen. Oh, I think we talked about this in one of our episodes.
We talked about it on episode 2 because we used to watch Hot Ones where they eat the chicken wings, but we were into chimkin nuggets and we would go to KFC. But that was the song, push me and then just touch me so I can get my
chimkin
nuggets. So I had that on the UE boom playing and Tim and I did a dance as we walked in.
It was so good. And I was like, oh no, my neighbors are going to snitch on me. But it was fine. It was actually fine. I think that's something that I'd like to talk about in this podcast, actually, because it's going to be a sensitive and hot topic for people with the lockdowns happening. And I don't want to give the impression that we're just doing whatever the fuck we want and flaunting, this hooligan activity. So I want to go into that. But before we do that, birthday. So so there was chimka nugget cake, which was fucking delicious. We ate those 20 nuggets.
We watched the latest edit of X Demons because Tim filmed and is editing your music video to X Demons. So he did that. And then we went out into a local park / bush up the road from yours, Field of Mars, and went down a path and then turned off into our own little bush bashing and had a ritual that involved mushrooms, the magical kind.
Of the sparkly sort.
Yeah, we journeyed beautifully, intensely, humorously, deeply.
Humorously.
Yeah, it was such a good time. I'm very curious to hear what throughout our journey we went in and out, listening to music, having shares, solo time, dancing, climbing trees, moving around, and until nighttime. And then there was a cemetery just next to it, so we went into the cemetery, had a bit of a journey there, and then things quickly shifted as I had a whole bunch of messages and calls from my roommates that my dog had gone missing and had been missing for hours.
That was a sharp turn.
That was a very sharp turn, big mood shifter. But before that, I'm curious to hear, including that maybe, but what were your biggest takeaways from that journey?
I was thinking about that because I was sharing with Atlas yesterday, and I was trying to recap the biggest takeaways. It's so hard. If you've ever done mushrooms or any kind of extended psychedelic journey, there's so much that comes through. And I was thinking about this, and I was talking about it while we were tripping as well. I feel like I can only do psychedelics now because of the personal development I've done. If I hadn't, because I tried to do drugs before I had done any self-work, it was horrible. It was horrible. It's like you just open the door to your subconscious mind and the floodgates open and you're supposed to just, figure out what the fuck it all means. So for me, it's always a lot comes through and a lot of philosophizing and a lot of unpacking, the questions that I have around what life is and what the universe is and what love is and what art is. And it's always the same topics for me. It never strays. It's always the mind, like understanding my own mind. It's always art, like understanding what art is and what my relationship to art is, understanding my relationship with the universe, God. It's always, and also like my purpose here, like what is my purpose here and how does that interact with my existence? And see them as two different things almost, like your existence, the fact that you're in the universe, and then like what am I actually here to do? So there was so much. And then when I'm like really in the thick of it, I start writing poetry and like I have to write poetry. And I was writing this poetry and trying to tell you guys what was dropping into my mind. But to try and summarize the biggest takeaways, I'll do my best. It's going to be hard, but I got the sense that freedom from the trap. So this is, I guess, like the trap, depending on what spiritual background you have, I would say that pretty much all religions have their own version of the trap. The trap is like, for example, in Christianity, the trap is you're born and then you're born into sin because Adam and Eve ate the apple, and so therefore you're sinful. And according to Christianity, the way out of the trap is to accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, right? That's the trap in Christianity. In Buddhism, it's like samsara, like you keep living over and over again until you pay your karmic debt, and then you can eventually escape and get to nirvana. So every religion, Western, Eastern, there's some sort of a trap, right? And personal development have it as well. It's like the trap, you know, your demons, your childhood wounds, blah, 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 heal your inner child and you'll be free, sort of thing. And so for me, I was like musing on it. I was like, actually, freedom from the trap, it's accessible in any moment. In any moment. There's nothing that you have to do to be free. You can actually access it right now. But the trap is we create our own traps for ourselves by not letting ourselves have that freedom. And it'll be like different things. It'll be like, oh, who am I to feel this happy and this free right now when everyone else is suffering, right? That's part of the trap. You feel guilty because you're having a good time. Or like, for example, I'm privileged and other people are oppressed. Now I need to not allow myself to have this freedom, right? It's like anytime you access a slice of that heaven pie where you feel completely liberated as a spiritual being and not bound by all of the crap that the world tells you have to feel, we don't let ourselves have that because, but what about everyone else? Or who am I to feel this good? Or blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm not free unless everyone else is free. And I just saw that in that moment. Like I saw how we don't allow ourselves to have that spiritual liberation, even though it's actually accessible in any moment. We can have it. And actually we are free. We're not trapped. Everything is an illusion. The trap, it's just bullshit. It's an illusion. Even law and like, oh, you'll get fined if you do this. It's like, just try it and see what happens. Just do what you want, see what happens. Is there a consequence? Yeah, there may be a consequence, but you deal with that at the time that it comes up. And I know that this is a very like, you know, it's a very, it's hard to have this conversation unless you just had it
right now, especially with lockdowns, etc.
Exactly. It's very difficult to have this conversation. You know, I feel like unless you've experienced it, it's hard. And I get it. And yes, you know, on one level, yes, there's oppression, there's oppressive systems. Yes, there's government. Yes, there's rules. Yes, there's this. Yes, there's like all of it. Yes, it's all real. And also it's complete bullshit at the same time. And I know people are going to fight me on this, but I'm just like, yo, I got to experience a moment of freedom. And to me, that is fucking worth it.
Well, that was, you know, just to also tie this in, we, in our last episode, we offered people, hey, if you have any subjects you want us to talk about, give us some suggestions. And one suggestion we got was, why do we feel artists are adhering more so to the rules and regulations of lockdown, and why are the spiritualists, personal development people more so moving into just doing what feels right and moving through that space. So I guess this does get a chance to address that as well throughout it. But this is something, you know, this is a hot topic right now. This is what a lot of people are moving through, trying to figure out what's right and wrong for them. And in no way, through like in my sharing and in my way of navigating this, am I saying everyone has to be this way?
No, hell no.
And like, I think that's a really important part, is like, you know, I've been facing, as of recent, people really telling me how I have to adhere to these rules and regulations and how I need to navigate myself. But also what I hear like happens in that is usually people that are telling me what to do are quite anxious,
Yeah.
quite like suffering throughout
Mm,
this, and not exercising their freedoms, their abilities to move through what is happening in the world and what the rules and regulations are from the government.
mm,
um, and being able to exercise freedom and happiness without it affecting other people, and
mm,
that's like throughout this experience of what we did, we weren't in contact with anyone else. We were off on our own, in our own spaces. And like,
mm.
I know like a really massive moment we had was like afterwards, it went dark. We're still tripping. We are off on a path on our own, and we tried to take our way back, but it was like complete darkness that way. So
We
we're
were
like,
lost.
we were
We were
lost.
lost in the dark, basically, in the
And we're
bush.
like, let's go the other way because I know there's a path up there. And then we're walking, and like there's this like big fence, and there's a cemetery on the other side, and it's those big like family vault sections of the cemetery
Beautiful
where the
crypts. They were
yeah,
gorgeous.
beautiful crypts, like a whole but villages worth. Like there's
Mm.
like streets and cul-de-sacs and everything going on in there. And we're like, wow, we're like mesmerized by the beauty. And then I was like, I want to go in there. Like, and
Wait,
you know,
hold on.
you're
Wait. Yeah, I know you go for it. I know you get you. Cool, cool, cool.
you're journeying some of your Christian conditioning. I don't have any of that. Tim, I'm pretty sure, doesn't have any of that. And then eventually, like, we just get to this part where the fence is gone and you can just walk in, and we go in and we move around and we're
Well, that's what I
looking.
want to talk on just before we go in, because for me in my trip, we're walking directly alongside. So this path, right on the left of it, is all the cemetery with all the crosses and all the Christian iconography and all the like sacred tombs, and it's all like sacred, and and all the reverence for the dead. And on the right is bush. So for
Bush.
me, in my mind, I'm like, whoa, I'm on the precipice of this split in my psyche of like everything that's like untouchable and sacred, and then like the other side, which is just bush, and you just fucking like everything it represented to me. And we're walking, and I could feel all the charge in my body and in my mind of like, there's so much in my psyche that I've been told I can't question, I can't touch, I can't go into.
Mm.
And then you said, oh, I really want to go inside. And as soon as you said that, because up until this point there'd been a fence, right?
Mhm.
So if we wanted to go in, we'd have to jump the fence, which is something we'd be willing to do. But it was like I was wrestling with all these ideas and blah blah blah. And then as soon as you said that, I really want to go inside, boom, there's no
Yeah,
fence.
there's no
Literally the
fence.
fence just like there's no fence there, and there's a little lane that takes you into the cemetery. It was crazy.
And then we go in and we're looking around. It's, a lot of it's silhouetted. It's a full moon. There's like on the right, there's like a field of like normal cross, like tombstones, etc. And then on the left is where all this like vaults is. What are they called? Crypts.
Crypts, yeah,
Uh,
they're like family, like they're just huge,
like houses for the dead, made of
exactly, like, but
marble and
mansions, they're like mansion tombs.
yeah. All there. And we end up going down this like little alley, We find our spot, we sit there, and it just, just the wildness of we were there on our own, having a beautiful moment. We weren't doing anything disrespectful. We were like in reverence, in awe, having a very beautiful spiritual journey, like appreciating the art, no one else around. And just that, how weird it is that we were in that moment breaking the law,
Mm,
that this is against the law. Like, you're not allowed to be out, you're not allowed to hang out, you're not allowed to do this. And, I don't know if you're allowed in the cemetery at that time. By the time we got back, my car was locked up, but I just forward drived out of there. But like all these rules of like, you can't do this, and it's
mm,
like, we're literally harming no one, and we feel so good and liberated, and really getting a break from the intensity that I'm sure like during the week I
mm,
feel, when
mm,
I'm working, I'm in this house, and had previously been having complications within the house around lockdown rules and different navigating different people's emotions. And I just
mm,
have this massive like relief of like, I've exercised my freedom and I've not harmed one person in doing this.
Yes. And I think for me, because, you know, in the height of my trip, I almost started a little internet war, because sometimes I do that, but I deleted it because I decided to be not rock the boat. But I posted, you know, you're having these fucking spiritual revelations, and for me it's like, I want people to know this. I want people to realize that, hey, like, you can still protect your quality of life by exercising freedoms. You don't have to be a fucking in the street rebel in the protest. You don't have to do that. Like,
so at the same time the Melbourne protests were happening, right?
Yeah, I you know, I don't feel I need to go to a protest and put people at risk and like breathe on everything and not wear masks. Like, that's not, to me, it's not about that. But to me, it's about ethics over law, because as we know, so much of our law is complete trash. What I mean is, like, the law is unethical. The law is not created in favor of its citizens all the time. And oftentimes the law doesn't allow for like human, or for humanity, you know, for common sense. It doesn't trust its citizens to make decisions. And it's so ironic to me that the people who will probably feel the most uncomfortable with what we did are, you know, what we would call the left, the people who are like, you know, woke in all of that. And it's like, it's so interesting, because traditionally when you had the uprising of anti-war movements in the 70s, that was the left. And that was like when people were discovering psychedelics and everyone was waking up and they were like, fuck the government. And now you have the fuck the government people who are like, actually, no, we have to follow all the rules and we can't question anything. And like, I get it. And for me, you know, one of the slogans of the left is like ACAB, all cops are bad. You know, to be an abolitionist, to destroy the colonial mindset of justice, which is actually punishment, and the police, you know, the police as a concept, you know, to destroy that. Policing. And yet everyone's policing each other by canceling each other and shaming each other and saying, and you've done this bad. It's like, because what we don't have is trust. We don't have trust. And so if you want to abolish the police, you have to learn how to trust.
And abolish the policing within yourself. And one that I can't look past for people, especially left and a lot of the community around me, and the people I see shaming people at these protests, is a lot of you motherfuckers were at the Black Lives Matter protest during the fucking pandemic last year. I was there. Alpha was there, and a lot of people that have told me you can't do this, you can't do that, and have shamed the protesters, people that went and exercised their right just because they're lumped in with the anti-vaxxers, is like, they exercised what they felt was important to them. Like, you cannot knock a protest is there for people to exercise their freedoms. I'm not at that protest personally, but I was like, I have to put aside this COVID thing last year, because I need to go to this Black Lives Matter protest, because this is important to me. And the government said we can't do it and everyone there will get fined, but we went anyways. And I feel like a lot of people are missing that part of themselves, that they're protesters for things that are important to them, but things that aren't important to them, they're like, oh, shame these people, bad people. But you are allowing the government to be right about protests are wrong. But if it was something important to you, if it was something happened to someone of color, like someone of the trans community, someone of the queer community, someone that aligns with you, I'm sure you would get out of your house if everyone else was going. And I just feel like that's really important.
And I think there's also a misconception. There's this idea that everyone who's at these protests are all privileged white people who've never experienced any oppression. That's actually not true. That's what the media would want you to believe. But I've seen some of the live streams and I actually know some people who've gone to the protests. Actually, a lot of the people who are at these protests are from migrant communities living out in the western suburbs who don't trust the government, who don't trust police, who don't trust, you know, maybe they don't trust the medical institution to really believe that they have their best interests at heart. And if you are a person of color who's experienced racism, who's experienced, the horrible effects of colonialism, then it's natural that you're going to feel suspicious and that you're going to, want to try and have your voice heard, and I think that it's a bit, I just think that it's like, because, a lot of people who are angry at the protesters are like, I just can't understand. But the emotion is like, you can't understand and you get angry. It's like, why not turn that anger into curiosity and actually go, okay, I can't understand. Well, what if I try and put myself in a different point of view, in a different perspective for a minute? Because there's this self-righteousness that I see happening. I would never put anyone's life in danger. It's fucking bullshit.
Bullshit. You speed in your car.
There's
you
so
jaywalk,
many ways that you
do
would.
this.
Yeah. Are you telling me that you have never, ever put anyone's life at risk? That's complete bullshit. And all of a sudden now you're this golden, hero that would never harm anybody. It's like, come on. And I'm not like, again, I just really want to make it clear. I don't think that protesting maskless is the answer. I really want to make that clear. I have a lot of Indonesian community who have suffered really terribly with COVID. Like I know people who have died, who have gotten really sick, and in this country as well. So, my mom works in the hospital system, so she knows that it's a real virus. If anyone's listening to this and still think, COVID is not real, it's a fucking real virus. I know so many people who've got it. I know a lot of people who've recovered as well, and recovered through natural treatments. So, me, I'm an advocate for, I guess, living as naturally as possible, even though I don't do it all the time, but I do advocate that. And yes, I have a suspicion toward Western medicine. So I'm just going to be honest about that because of my personal experiences. However, I've seen how fucking devastating the effects of COVID have been in the world. And so I wouldn't go to a protest and put other people at risk and put myself at risk. That's not my choice. However, can I understand why people would choose to go to a protest or would choose to? Yes, I can understand, because I'm not so fucking in my own story that I can't see a different point of view. And I think it's important to be able to actually remember, like, if you consider yourself a woke person, an activist, what are you fucking fighting for? You're fighting for people to be diverse in their thoughts and their feelings. You're fighting for everyone's voice to matter. You're fighting for people's right to not only be safe, but also to be free. And I think you have to challenge that inner policeman in your mind that's like, being condemning and shaming without first asking, well, how could I actually try to see things from a point of view that is not my own?
Yeah. Again, like I don't feel times I feel like fucking protesting and doing shit, like being like, fuck this shit. I have those moments during the week. I get really angry. Luckily I have the tools that I can release on my own. But yeah, I'm not going to go to that unmasked. I think me personally, I feel like it's a bit of a move, it's a bit dangerous. It's to me, unnecessary rebellion. But I care, for people that are going there. I have clients that have lost businesses. I have friends that have lost homes, during this pandemic and during these lockdowns, especially down in Melbourne, that I can go, fuck. I understand why you're angry at the government and you want to be surrounded by people that feel the same, and then you can get that release. I know at protests, just the energy, the collective catharsis, the collective processing of emotions is important. And a lot of people aren't getting that. They're locked in places that maybe they live on their own or live with people that feel different to them and need to go and be at this place and go, I can't take this anymore. So I get it, and I don't really have much to stand on. I know the numbers are different and this Delta variant is different, but I went to the protests last year when the government said, don't do it, like COVID's too dangerous. And I did it, because that was what mattered to me at that time.
Exactly. And I think it's like, that was in your integrity to do because of your own beliefs, your own values. You decided this is important enough for me to go against the law, to
Mm-hmm.
go against, there were so many people who were criticizing, or there are always people who criticize protests.
Yes.
There are always
Yes.
going to be people who say that's irresponsible. You shouldn't do it this way. If you want to affect change, that's not the way to do it. It's like, just because you don't agree with the reason why people are protesting, it's a fuck thing to say, but like, to me, that shows the sign of, how much, I don't know. I don't want to get up on a fucking spiritual high horse, and it's probably ironic.
Get up on there. Yeehaw!
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Okay, for example, this is a different can of worms, but it's kind of related. And I know you can't compare apples to oranges, but you kind of can compare them, actually. You can see how they're similar and you can see how they're different.
Yeah.
Well, for example, I have had a lot of abortions. All right. I've had 6, to fully be honest. And this is going to trigger a lot of people talking about this. And I've talked about it before, but just to go into it, I've had 6 abortions. All of those abortions were really hard for me to have. And I remember one time going to preterm. It's closed down now, which is really fucking sad. But I went to preterm and there were protesters outside. That was really fucking hard for me. It was already a very difficult decision for me personally. I know some women don't find it the decision difficult. For them, it's like, cool, I'm just going to go do this, and that's fine. For me, it was hard. I went there. There were protesters outside, and I didn't want them to be there. I don't agree with what they're saying. I don't agree that, that a woman should not have the right over what she wants to do with her body. I don't agree that like this tiny baby, little speck of cells counts as a human. I don't agree with that. However, I do think that people should have the right to disagree with me and should have the right to think their own thoughts and to feel their own feelings. And so if they want to be there doing that, I think it's fucking stupid. And it's upsetting to me. And if I were to have a conversation, I would give them a piece of my mind for sure. But they're allowed to think that. They're allowed to say that. If they want to do that, and if they want to, sit with their own fucking, integrity. And if they truly believe that's the right thing to do from where they stand, all right, cool. And I just got to trust that one day they're going to learn something or see something or have some experience that's going to give them a different perspective. That's the best I can do. And maybe I can say something that's going to change their perspective. But right now, for me, it's like there's this trust that I have that everybody is genuinely doing their best with the information that they have, with their life experience, with their perspective. They're not trying to be evil. And I don't know, like that's the thing that I have to hold on to if I want to have any hope for humanity.
Yeah, and I feel like we've continued to talk about that across multiple podcasts now. Is that like you can't cancel people, you can't shame people into change. Like it always comes back to like understanding, empathizing, like. And that's something we're both on that journey with, and that was just a lot of like that was to bring it back to the mushrooms. That was a big part of my takeaway is like I know one of your intentions was like to return back to the magic, right? To like that person. And for me, a lot of my intention was around like how do I be like gently ruthless, meaning like how do I turn the blinders on and move forward without hurting anyone at the same time. And a part of that is my practices like meditating, self-pleasure, exercise, yoga, like all these things which become quite overwhelming for me to have such a fucking great balance of eating good, doing this, doing that, blah blah blah. And I feel like over the recent years, a big thing that I've forgotten and just really came back as a medicine uh, over over the weekend when we did that ritual trip in bush was like, oh, this is my best practice that also helps all my other practices. Like I know when I lived in Byron, I was nearly, every other weekend I was doing that. I was going, getting my
Mm,
mushrooms, taking a smaller dose, like half a gram, going into the bush, and that would create meditation for me, create natural movement. It would create like unpacking, it would create feeling my emotions, it would create self-pleasure
mm,
so naturally for me. Create
mm,
movement, all these things just happen naturally for me on psychedelics. And then during the week,
mm,
it would be in my system to just do that, because sometimes I fall out of meditation, sometimes I fall out of self-pleasure, and it's
mm,
hard to get back on. It's hard to find that place of pleasure in it. Sometimes it's so annoying that I have to meditate, have to do this,
mm,
have to move through those blocks.
mm,
But psychedelics just create that for me, and it also just brings me back to compassion and love and empathy for everyone and anyone. And I'm having qualms with any group of people that I'm frustrated with, this,
mm,
like the parts of myself that I'm angry at, like
mm,
all of it just dissolves, and it's just this like reset button. And that was a big takeaway for me, was like, this is the practice that I actually need to return to more often, is just taking a smaller dose of psychedelics,
mm,
being in nature. It's gonna guide me into exactly what I need, and it's gonna make my practices more sustainable. That was a
mm,
big takeaway. And I remember, like, in the phases of me growing my platform, my social media, my finding my own identity beyond just being the supporter, where my star started to rise was through those trips of me going out into the bush and integrating, also the spiral and all these different things. But that was the most like consistent, like, like,
mm,
yes, this is actually bringing me back to myself. And another big takeaway that I got was, probably the biggest takeaway is just seeing, for someone that I consider myself quite unapologetic, quite expressive, quite willing to take up space, is there's still so many pleasantries that I am doing for myself and for others around me that just aren't serving
mm,
anyone really,
mm,
but
mm,
it's just this conditioning of, I've got to do this, I've got to do that I don't
mm,
actually feel like doing, like
mm,
in actuality, which is bogging me down, making me feel anxious,
mm,
making me feel foggy. And just that moment of going, like, there's just, like, for instance, like, certain friends that I am sitting in a place of pleasantries rather than truly saying how I feel, which is, I
yeah.
fucking love you and I'm upset about this and that or whatever.
Mm,
And I want to get back to that place of love, but I'm moving away with it and
mm.
disguising it in pleasantries.
Yes. Just you saying that, it's made me realize how much I miss telling the truth.
Yes.
No, for real. Like, man, I miss those days when, open world days, like, when,
Mhm,
our
mhm,
crew would sit in the backyard and we would just fucking tell the truth. That's
mhm,
it. Like,
mhm,
not sugarcoat shit, not like you didn't do, like, I just like stupid fucking shit that I don't
mhm,
care about, actually. I just
mhm,
wish that we could just tell the truth. But what I realized also on the mushroom trip was not everybody, oh, this is edgy to say,
mhm. Go.
okay, I don't know if this is the right words, but it's like not everyone deserves the truth.
Mm, yeah,
Not
I hear
not
that.
not everybody, because sometimes that sort of truth, just because it's true, doesn't mean that it's useful in a moment, and doesn't mean that it's going to be beneficial. And we like to think that truth is always medicine. Like,
Mhm,
sometimes it's actually not,
mhm,
sometimes truth is disruptive and destructive.
mhm, mhm,
And I think it can be very confronting when you just tell someone the truth of what you think or what you feel, where you're at, if they're not willing to sit in that and
mhm,
actually like find a way through. And I just, man, I miss having those kinds of friendships where the truth is the priority as opposed to the niceties and like, you know, making you feel good. Like, I don't want friends that only make me feel good. I don't want that, because I can do that with sugar. I can just eat sugar and have some fucking orgasms and I can feel good. But I don't feel alive and I don't feel honest when I'm living like that. And maybe on my hand, I can count 3 people who I have that with. You, Atlas, Nardo, which, you know, that fluctuates sometimes as well. And I just realized that in you saying that, I miss living at that level of truth where it's like, fucking burn me with your truth, because that's who I want to be.
Well, you know, that was a big part of my realization of like, it's not me some majority of the time. I mean, it's not them, it's me. Like, I'm not being true with myself. I'm like creating niceties for myself to stop myself from feeling exactly what's there, rather than going, oh, I can nicely dance around this with like some pleasantries with others. But if I were to be true, it means I have to feel this, you know. That was a big part
you
of
have
it.
to sit with the consequences of what's going to happen next.
Well, like, you know, I feel okay with talking about this. Like, a big one, just because it's a recent episode, was like, I'm not allowing myself to be like deep friends with Phoenix, you know, like it's like I'm keep just doing enough for the flame, you know, and like it's like I haven't replied to his recent message for a while. It's because like if I want to say what I want to really say, like that's why it's taken me so long, because I don't even want to look at what I want to say as a friend, you know, and just to go, oh, like let's cut through all this bullshit of us being super nice to each other and making sure we don't hurt one another because of we're on eggshells. It's like, well, fucking destroy the eggshells and go back to the flat ground, you know, like stomp them down if we have
Put
to.
some boots on, motherfucker.
Yeah, like that's a thing. And you know, things with my dad, things with this, with that, like just with myself, it's like, oh my God, I'm being so nice to myself. Yeah.
It's look, it is a delicate line to walk, because sometimes multiple things can be true, right? I think about my relationship with my dad, for example, and I love my dad. That's a truth. Don't always agree with how he lives his life or what he thinks. Do I need to tell him that? No. I can love him and appreciate the kind of relationship that I can have with him, because I don't have to insist on telling him my truth. And I'd also that, because that means that I don't also have to tolerate him trying to convince me of his truth, if that makes sense. There's a level of respect and boundaries that we have now with each other, because I really emphatically communicated with him a few years ago. You can't talk to me this way. Just because you think that this is true, I get that. I respect that. I honor that. It's not my truth. It's not what I'm choosing. And it means then that he knows there are certain things that he can't do with me in order for us to actually have a safe and loving relationship. And I think that I'm learning that in my extended communities and even on social media as well. There was a time that I thought it was my job to only ever like say what's authentically true, and you know, and then if you disagree with me, then you disagree with me. But I'm kind of in this place now where I'm like, actually, if I really told the truth about what I think, most people would not agree with me. And they probably wouldn't have the capacity to understand that that's true in this moment. It might change. And so I kind of choose to share things now that I feel people will benefit from, rather than just what I think is my truth to get off my chest, if that makes sense.
Well, that was a thing, even though we've just talked about it now, but the person that reached out to us is a good friend of ours around that topic of talking about COVID and lockdowns and not agreeing with some of the rules and whatnot, and the ways that we might not fully adhere to them. And you and I were like, yeah, we don't really want to talk about that. It's just, it's going to isolate us from certain people. And they're like, oh shit, if you two aren't willing to talk about that, what's going on in the world,
Yeah, I felt that, and I did feel, I was like, fuck, I need to be able to talk about this. Otherwise, I did feel like I was a bit of a cop out.
Yeah. And that was the big lessons around this trip for me. Was just like, fuck the niceties, but also don't just do it to upset people. Don't just do it to like penetrate through people and upset people if they want it, but also like be my truth. I'm not sharing absolutely everything right now that I think about COVID and whatnot, vaccinations, blah, blah, blah. Even though I am vaccinated, like I still have feelings about all these things. Like I'm not going into all of it because I just don't find it necessary. But what I do want to provide is value and a bit of relief and just address things that are currently going on. And I just know people tune into us weekly right now that are looking for some guidance from us and some perspective and to be able to interpret that in their own way. And I had multiple people reach out to me, like clients, especially down in Victoria and Melbourne, going, I'm feeling a lot around this Melbourne protests and COVID, and I don't know what I'm meant to do. Am I meant to go? Am I not meant to go? Am I meant to hate people that do it? Am I meant to be one of the people that, like, people, fuck, I don't know what I'm doing right now. So like, I hope this can be a bit of medicine to like, this is how we feel. This is what we think. We love and accept everyone in what they're doing and understand that, you've got to do what you got to do. We might not agree with everything on both sides. That's the thing, is like, the left and right talk for me, whatever, government, anti-establishment, like, to me, it's forever and always like, pick and choose what fits right for you on either side. You don't have to fall into either category. You feel into what's right for you and listen to different perspectives of different people. And I'm always going to get different knowings and understandings. Like, I'm a big podcast person, so I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I listen to so many people that just trigger the shit out of me. But I'm like, this is a truth out there, just like people going out there that are anti-vaxxers, and then people that are getting grouped in with the anti-vaxxers that aren't anti-vaxxers at this protest, that are wearing masks, that are upset about losing their job or this, that, and this. And I have to hear these different perspectives on more topics than this, around sexuality and gender and race and blah. But yeah, there's times where I'm like, fuck, people still think about that, or people are thinking like that. This feels like an attack on me, but I have to breathe through it and listen. And sometimes I have to switch it off. But a lot of the time I'm like, I feel like I need to hear this to be a balanced person and go, oh fuck, that way I was thinking. Actually, it was very limited and very conservative for myself, like conservative in the manner of like, I am up on my spiritual high horse and my way is right. But now that I've heard this opposite side, now I'm more balanced again.
100%. Yeah. I know we didn't want to go into it, but I feel like it's one of those moments like, fuck it, let's go into it. Well, because you brought it up, vaccinations, and you said like, you're vaccinated, I'm not. And it's really interesting. I haven't spoken much about vaccinations on my thing. And part of the mushroom trip, what I got was, there is like a little seed inside me that constantly feels like I need to help people. I need to show people. I need to teach people. It's why I also do what I do, as a facilitator of transformation. I run programs. I help people with their stuff. I teach. But what I got in the mushroom trip was, I want to let go of that identity more and more and just live a way through. instead of like
Mm-hmm.
teaching or showing others, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
living it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be on this soapbox or on this pedestal with everyone looking at me as like this, you know, beacon of truth or beacon of wokeness or beacon of fucking anything. I
Mm-hmm.
don't I don't want to tell you what I think is right.
Mm-hmm.
For me, what I'm more interested in is I just want to empower people to be able to self-source their own truth and their own knowing through their own
Mm-hmm.
experience. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
that means research, learning, studying, yeah, but also like putting it through your own body and through your own mind and using your own discernment and being able to actually come to your authentic conclusion and back that with your full self.
Mm-hmm.
And so on the subject of vaccinations, it's really interesting. Like, you're vaccinated, I'm not, by
Mm-hmm.
choice
Mm-hmm.
currently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I think vaccinations are bad. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
for me right now, when I feel into it, it doesn't feel right for me. And if
Mm-hmm.
I were to force myself to get a vaccination when I don't feel like it's right, to me, that's a violation of my own integrity, a violation of my
Mm-hmm.
own boundaries. And I will
Mm-hmm.
not succumb to peer pressure as a
Mm-hmm.
reason to get it, especially with people saying, well, you're putting everyone else at risk. It's like, imagine saying that to a person saying, hey, like, you have to have sex with this person because if you don't, you're putting everyone else at risk. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I would never fucking tolerate that ever. And for
Mm-hmm.
people to try and coerce me and manipulate me, shame me into
Mm-hmm.
injecting substances in my body that I don't feel comfortable with yet. Everyone else
Mm-hmm.
can do it. Go for it. I'm fucking celebrating. You're my best friend. You're vaccinated. Like, I love
Mm-hmm.
you. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful for you. For
Mm-hmm.
me, it doesn't feel right just yet. And am I
Mm-hmm.
reading up on it? Yeah, totally. And I'm looking at lots of different pieces of information. And I don't think that vaccinations are the only way through this pandemic. That's where I stand right now. And I haven't
Mm-hmm.
spoken about it because I think people are going to fucking judge me, are going to
Mm-hmm.
call me out, cancel me. But in this moment, I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
fucking cancel me.
Mm-hmm.
Because once I'm canceled, then I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to fucking tread on eggshells trying to make sure that I keep everyone happy. If I'm canceled, then I can actually just live.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
live.
Well, that's the thing, it's also on my side, it's like uh, a vulnerable thing saying that I'm vaccinated because of actually in our community, a lot of people are, you know,
Anti-vax.
anti-vax, but not to like label as like I am an anti-vax because I feel like that has a lot of bad, like taboo connotation around it,
Stigma,
but
yeah.
stigma. But yeah, a lot of people stand because of myself. I don't get vaccinated with anything else, really. And I don't take any Panadol unless I absolutely need to, which is like once a year. I don't take a lot of things. And, when I was on prep, I fought to the bitter end until I knew my body. I couldn't handle this idea that I kept thinking I was getting HIV when I was sleeping with men, like some kind of conditioning going on where I was like, okay, I'm gonna fucking take prep. And just certain things where I fought to the bitter end on a lot of uh like pharmaceutical medicines that I didn't want to do. And now, yeah, I remember like not that long ago, one of my good friends up in Byron uh, got vaccinated. And we talked about it on the phone, and I was like, "Oh, how are you feeling about like everyone up there telling people?" And they're like, "I'm keeping it to myself." I'm like, "Yeah, probably advisable, especially up in Byron and Mullumbimby. Like people are extremely anti-vax, like
Extremely,
that
yeah.
that you probably get outcasted, and
Yeah,
then."
totally. They think
Uh,
that you've got some microchip in you now that's going to turn into fucking a cyborg or whatever. It's so
Yeah, they
crazy.
think you are Elon Musk himself, that or like whoever these rich people that are getting rich shamed, the guy going into the rocket and into space, whoever he is.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I do think there's a lot of suspicion about the new technology of the vaccines, this
Mhm.
mRNA technology. And,
Which is
I get it.
fine to think it. And like I also can entertain the ideas that there's all different kinds of shit in these is vaccinations. But to me, in the end, I was just like, I really just couldn't be bothered with the
Mm,
talk of it.
mm,
I also part of it was like, if these vaccine passports start coming out,
mm.
I don't want to be in a position where they do come out and everyone's not vaccinated, and then all of a sudden there's a traffic jam of vaccinations where everyone's like, oh fuck, now I want to get it because I want my freedom. It's like,
Mm,
I'm just preemptively getting it. And
mm,
also, like, I just had rules for myself doing it. Is like, since
mm,
I've done it, every day I've been doing breath work, like the
mm,
Wim Hof breath work, and knowing the ways that he's regulated things in his nervous system and pushed
mm,
toxins out of his body. And
mm,
what I've learned, how he has that fucking Guinness Book of Record where something that was meant to knock him out for 2 weeks, he pushed out of his body in a few hours by his
mm,
breath work. Obviously, I don't
mm,
have the mastery he does, but it's like, if I'm going to do this, I
mm.
have to have these rules
Yeah.
around how I'm going to treat my body, and I'm not going to let
Yes.
anything overcome me, because I got hit
Yes.
with and a lot of the people I know get hit with a very intense fucking fever. It was the most intense fever I've ever had.
Yeah.
Uh, and that was just something I've got to push out of my body, and I've got to
Mm,
really know. And you got to get 2 doses, and
mm,
yeah, like I had this, yeah, fuck, if people find out from my
mm,
community, if my
mm.
clients find out this, that, and this,
Yeah.
because I have certain clients that are anti-vax, I have certain clients that are pro-vax, like,
Yeah.
and how they're gonna that. This is where we are in fucking society. If you put something in your body, if you don't put something in your body, we're gonna be divided, and that's just not okay for me. And
Same.
this is an example, is like, I'm friends with so many people, including yourself, that aren't vaccinated, and I'm friends with so many people that are vaccinated. And it's like,
Mm,
to
mm.
me, in the end, who fucking cares? Like,
Yeah.
just do what feels right for you.
The problem is, though, the people who are, this is the problem. This is the way we've become so divided on this subject, is because most people, not all, most people who are pro vax think that it's the only way back to a sense of normality. And they think that it's the only way to keep us healthy and to protect one another. So it comes
Mhm,
from like a really beautiful place, right? It's like, I care about everyone. That's why I want
mhm,
everyone to get vaccinated, right? So
mhm,
I
mhm,
see that as beautiful. And then the
mhm,
people who are on the anti side, well, most people or a lot of people are like, I think that the vaccination is actually bad for us,
mhm,
and I want to keep everyone safe and healthy. That's
mhm.
why I'm anti-vax, because I actually think that it's not good for us. It's not healthy. So there's care on both sides.
Uh-huh.
There's love on both sides. And I
Uh-huh.
don't think that anyone, and yeah, like I just kind of see that. And for me personally, I don't think that it's my calling to advocate for anything. I would love to be able to live in a world where we can trust each other,
Mhm, mhm,
to make decisions that are loving and that are kind.
mhm,
I don't want to put
mhm,
anyone at risk. I don't want
mhm,
to make anybody sick.
mhm,
So, if it was mandated that unvaccinated people aren't allowed to go out, well,
mhm,
I would have to, I'd have to deal with that consequence when the time comes. If
mhm,
it's like,
mhm,
because I've thought about it a lot, maybe there will be rules, only vaccinated people are allowed to do shows again.
mhm,
I'm going to have to make that decision when the time comes. It's either I
mhm.
have to get vaccinated or I find a new way to create
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah.
And it's like evolve or die.
Mhm,
And you have to choose your pivot. It's like a
mhm,
game,
mhm,
it's like a choose your own adventure. You got to choose your pivot. You got to go, okay, where am I going to go now? And
mhm,
to me, the flaw in the logic is, I don't think that the answer is everyone gets vaccinated, everything goes back to normal. I don't
mhm,
believe that is
mhm.
what's going to happen,
No.
because I see it, from a spiritual point of view. I think that this virus is an opportunity for us to inspect as
Mhm,
a fucking collective and see, well, what the fuck is wrong? Like, where
mhm,
did it come from? How did it come to be that we are so susceptible to this virus that could take everybody out? What do we need to change? Is it our lifestyle? Is it our diet? Is it our communication methods? Is it the way that we live? Like, is it the way that, like, because for me, I have to ask myself these questions. All right, Alpha, if you're not going to get vaccinated, how can you keep your immune system so fucking healthy that if you do get coronavirus, you will be able to recover? I need to now
mhm,
go and study and figure out how to make myself healthy. That's on me. That's my responsibility.
mhm,
And And if I am putting people at risk by going to the supermarket being unvaccinated, okay, I'll wear that. All right, I'll get all my groceries delivered. I'll not leave the house. I'll create a situation, which is why I'm moving in with you, because I know I can keep creating from there. There's a backyard. I can put a stage up there. I can broadcast my shows, and I can stay unvaccinated and not put anybody at harm. So that's the way that I'm dealing with it right now.
Yeah, like, one thing that I fucking hate and also have seen beauty from it is I have a client and I have friends that work in the health industry that don't want to get vaccinated. So September forward, they don't have a job if they don't get vaccinated, because you have to be vaccinated to work in.
They're going to have to pivot.
Yep. And one of my clients, we've been doing a lot of work around it, and now they've successfully launched a business and making the steps that they can continue to be unvaccinated and not have to work a job that they liked, but maybe wasn't the most purposeful, aligned thing that they wanted to do. So now they have their own business because they've gone, I'm not getting vaccinated, and now it's time to do this thing that I've always wanted to do anyways, because I've been put into a place where I have to pivot and be malleable and go into a different experience. I hate that this is a thing that some people are gonna have to do, that they are going to leave their work because they don't want to get vaccinated, that it's forced upon them. I hate that. But I also love that for some people, it's like, well, shit's got to change, and this has happened to a lot of people around jobs, and then losing their jobs and then creating new online businesses. Like, that's one of my favorite things that has come from COVID is a lot of people have stepped into their own leader, into their own creative, into their own, because they've just had no choice.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing that's come from it. But again, like you were saying, like, be willing to change and be willing to question, if I'm going to do this, what changes, and also what benefits do I get from it? How do I change? Just like an example of that is I've been on keto just recently, and I've always been keto diet, and I can't have any dairy. I don't eat dairy. I don't really eat meat. All these rules that I've had about myself. And then in this keto diet, you sort of need meat and dairy to survive. And before, I would get a stuffy nose. I'd be very clogged up. I'd be really tired if I had meat and all these things. This is what I believe. And now I'm having that, and I'm more energized than ever in my life. And it's like, this was a certain dogma that I put upon myself. And if I change some things, now I can eat more things. I can experience more things. And I don't agree with, now I'm figuring out, okay, I don't want that much meat because I'm really smashing through it. And now I'm going to change again. But just things like that in life, around this vaccination, around COVID, around the rules, if you change something and something changes for you, how are you going to adapt, and what are you going to learn about yourself? That's what I find most important. And even with the things that you've heard and listened and agreed and not agreed with what we've shared across this podcast, how are you going to adapt? What are you going to take from it? Where are the lessons for you? What are you taking away from this particular conversation?
Yeah. Yep. Love that. And, if there's any parts of this podcast that have triggered you, I get it. I get it. And just breathe and just understand that, I guess Paisley and I are two people who are, I don't want to speak for you, but for me, I want to be someone who can hold space for difference, who can hold space for, different perspectives, different points of view, and not have to impose what I think is right or what I think is true. So, we're willing to listen and willing to learn and willing to understand. And we want this to be a space where we get to explore, what we think, what we feel, but also just let that be an invitation for you to just, I guess, use those triggers as kind of figuring out in your internal terrain, in your own psyche, those triggers are showing you places that you probably haven't really ventured into just yet. And I think that's a great way to use triggers. It's oh, I'm really triggered by this. That means there's some gold in here. That means this is a place for me to explore.
Yeah, of course. Like something that you've said in earlier podcasts is like a part of being unapologetic is the willingness to apologize and change. Is like,
Mm,
yeah, like you're saying, if there's something in here that you feel like there's a value for us that
mm.
we could change, of course, because that's happened already with this podcast. Whatever episode it was that you've been called out, where we talked about
Oh yeah.
the festival and my situation, is after that we had a lot of talks with different people from our community, and
Yeah.
a thing that we've taken away is like we don't really say names on this podcast now. Like
Yeah.
we're not name dropping as much, and we're being a bit more, and when we are, we're being intentional about it.
Mm,
And that's a takeaway, and we want to learn and know how to best create and grow and expand on this podcast and learn ourselves.
yeah.
So the don't feel like, yeah, we're up on this high horse, because we are speaking from places of our knowledge, our understanding, our sharing. So we
Mm,
are in a certain position of leadership and taking charge,
mm.
but it doesn't mean that there's no reflection and learning and being malleable and adaptive to the climate here as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that. And I think that's who I want to be. I want to try and be that person and just stay to that. Because
Mhm.
when I think about my values and when I think about my intention for being here on this planet, it's more important for me to be a bridge and a connecting person than to be
Mhm.
like a divider or to be like separate people. And I
Mhm.
think that the way that I can be that is by continuing to hold a space that allows for everybody to have their different perspectives, and to, as much as I can, remember to not shame, to try and
Mhm.
use shame as a motivation for changing people's minds or
Mhm.
judgment or
Mhm.
criticism, any of that stuff. And
Guilt.
just,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, guilt.
So
We
to
had we had a long list, but I feel like
we had
that
a long list, so
just
yeah, we didn't get to, we opened up Pandora's box on lockdowns and etc. So of
we
course
did.
we had a longer list, we had other things to talk about, but this is what was the main priority, it seems. So again, we would love to hear feedback, we would love to hear what you needed today. So many people have been reaching out to me and writing on the comments and personal messaging, like what you've needed across here, and it really does give inspiration to what we're doing. And yeah, we've got some feedback on things people would like to hear us talk about, so continue to do that. It really does go a long way, and it really fuels us, because there's times where we're like, fuck, what are we going to talk about? And we
Yeah,
can talk about anything forever, but what is going to be the most value, what's going to really,
yeah,
yeah, create culture, create intimacy, create new lessons for everyone. So
definitely.
please let yourself be heard with us.
What's needed? Because I mean, it is called I Needed This Today. So tell us
Mhm.
what you need so we can give you what you need.
Awesome.
All right. I love you all. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And, I just want to say, like, I know that the people who listen to this podcast are highly intelligent people,
Mhm.
who also hold that line of like being willing to
Mhm.
look at different perspectives. So I just appreciate you being in our community, in our world, and I just really love you. So thanks for your support.
Yes, definitely. That's the biggest takeaway that I've been getting from the people that say, I need this today, is that I know they get it and they see it and they understand. And hopefully we continue to expand to more and more people
Mm.
that can hold these different perspectives, and we can grow and create a culture out of not being polarizing, but to be diverse and finding that duality in all perspectives. Yeah.
Yes. I was going to say amen, but I've changed it to Amy. It's like, it's not amen, it's Amy.
Hey me.
Amy.
Hey us. Yeah. All right. Love you all. Mwah.
Goodbye.